Introduction to Peninsula Asteroids. I'm here to become a star. I see it, I am sure I can succeed. I'll go. Forget it, this place is too complicated to conquer, I'll still talk about my love. Chapter 1. Auditory Hallucinations. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Under the sunlight, Jingyuan woke up from his dream in shock. The melody he had dreamed of before still lingered in his mind, and the sound swirled around, making it difficult for him to distinguish whether he had truly woken up. He furrowed his brow and gently swayed his right hand against the forehead, intending to dispel the dreamy dizziness that had just woken up. The dazzling sunlight outside the window also timely pulled him back to reality. I dreamed of these melodies again. Jingyuan got up and walked to the window, squinting his eyes to look outside, pondering in his heart. I don't know how many times it has been. Since the age of 10, he has been dreaming of music from time to time in his sleep. Some of them are simply musical melodies, while others are accompanied by lyrics, and sometimes even some strange film and television clips. However, whether it is the song or the movie segment, the duration is not long. At most it will appear for more than 10 seconds, and then the dream will return to chaos. When people are about to wake up or have just woken up, they have a deep memory of the dream they just had. However, as they become conscious, the details of the dream gradually become forgotten, and often only a rough idea can be remembered later on. However, these songs and fragments with unclear meanings in Jingyuan's dream are different, and do not fade away with the memory of the dream. Instead, they become clearer and clearer in memory, even if they can still be recalled many days later. At the beginning, Jingyuan thought that it was due to the high pressure of studying that led to neurasthenia and auditory hallucinations, and even went to the hospital for a detailed examination. The examination results are uncertain whether it is good or not. Apart from some myopia, his physical condition is very good without any problems, and his suspected neurasthenia does not exist at all. Afterwards, Jingyuan went to see a psychologist specifically, and it is said that he is still quite famous. The psychologist used a well-controlled expression to utter a series of nagging words and then arranged a meditation therapy that made it impossible for people to fall asleep, leaving a deep impression on Jingyuan. After a course of professional psychotherapy, there was no improvement in Jingyuan's auditory hallucinations in his dreams. The experience is still great, and if there is another treatment, he can also accept it. The main treatment goal was not achieved, but there were still other therapeutic effects. At least during that period, his sleep improved a lot. Thank you to the famous doctor who sparked his strong interest in the profession of psychotherapist and gave him the idea that, it seems like I can handle this job too. After some twists and turns, Jingyuan also gave up the idea of medical treatment. After all, his dream hallucinations did not occur frequently, even if it was not a big deal. As long as you accept its existence, it's actually quite interesting, at least occasionally sleeping and dreaming becomes more colorful. However, a few years later, Jingyuan finally learned what these melodies and images he had dreamt of hearing were. When he watched music programs on TV when he was bored, a song played on TV immediately cheered him up when he was absent-minded, because the chorus of this song was exactly the same as a melody he had dreamed of hearing in his dream. Although there was only a short melody in his dream, he immediately identified it as the song playing on the TV in front of him. Then he immediately searched for information about this song, which was just released by a long-established singer. It is said to have been created by a professional musician and has just been released. But this melody, Jingyuan, had already heard it a few years ago. This discovery surprised Jingyuan and he didn't know what to say. After a fierce brainstorming, he immediately began searching for various music and film materials to verify his judgment. Through comparison, he found several songs with the same melody as hallucinations, as well as some movies and TV dramas that had appeared in his dreams in the past. Although not completely found, what has been discovered is enough to indicate the problem he has encountered. Special inspiration. Electrocardiogram induction. Future prediction. Jingyuan couldn't come to a conclusion, but at least he knew what his condition was. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Although his condition may sound a bit frightening, it has been accepted for so many years now. Even if it is a bit eerie, it is not a big deal. After all, he is the only one who knows about this matter. When he went to the hospital for a check-up before, he used a powerful excuse of feeling unwell. Even the closest family members did not know about this matter. He decided to keep this matter deep in his heart. Subsequently, Jingyuan found an interesting place by comparing the songs he had heard in his dreams and some movies and TV dramas. These occasional melodies I have heard in my dreams, and the clips I have seen are indeed from some future songs and TV dramas, just like what I have judged, but each one is different. In terms of songs, after the official appearance of the songs he hallucinated, the quality and performance of the songs vary. Some songs can be popular for a while, but there are also some songs that disappear without even a splash. The contrast between the two is very strong. It should be noted that he finally discovered a few songs of 1-day tours. But movies and TV shows are different. As long as a movie or TV show that he once dreamed of appeared in the world, he could achieve good results, and even some could lead the trend and become a topic of discussion for a while. Jingyuan couldn't figure out the reason and could only accept it. This kind of auditory hallucination phenomenon does not occur frequently, sometimes not once in 6 months, and most of it is the melody of a dream song. In contrast, there are very few scenes from movies and TV dramas, and it is understandable that they are of higher quality. I hope this talent can bring me some help. Jingyuan shook his head and perked up, then walked downstairs after washing up. Chapter 2 was decided like this. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Have you really made a decision? Although she had already voted in favor in her heart, as the president of SM Entertainment, Jin Ingmin felt it was necessary to ask this question. After all, it was not a small matter. That's right, from an artist's professional perspective, although this child has never joined the company as a trainee, it is said that due to his hobbies, he has also undergone a considerable amount of systematic training in dance and music. The dance and vocal teachers his parents found for him are also not ordinary people. So whether it's vocal, dance, or even typhoons that haven't received professional training, he has an advantage over Woo-seik. Woo-seik was not selected for the combination based on his strength. His various abilities were not ranked in the middle of the entire trainee group, and he was selected for the debut group only because of his good appearance and bloodline across the sea, which is more in line with the concept of a combination team. However, compared to this child, Woo-seik's advantages are not worth mentioning. Although this child's abilities may not be considered top-notch, with a little practice, they can reach the level of stage performance. After a period of intensive training, they will definitely become a qualified artist. As the founder and president of the company, Lee Shuman, who is responsible for cultivating artists, said in a positive and unquestionable tone. He was wearing glasses and his small eyes were bright and lively. Lee Shuman paused for a moment and then continued to talk confidently. In addition, I have also communicated with this child's family. In addition to being a singer, he will also develop in the film and television industry. His brother also expressed that his family is willing to provide him with reliable resources and can share some other aspects of his network. And that's exactly what our company needs. As an entertainment economy company, even if we have achieved some success in the folk music industry, only by walking on 2 legs can we be secure. The company has already suffered a lot in this regard. Lee Shuman seemed to realize that he was getting off topic. While stopping the conversation, he took off his glasses and carefully wiped them with a soft cloth. The slightly excited emotions in his heart also calmed down. Then he put on his glasses and continued. I have seen this child twice, and even if it weren't for family reasons, I would definitely hire him into the company. His talent is exactly what the company needs. I also heard his brother say that this child seems to have good creative talent, and I don't know if it's true. However, this is not important. Having creative talent is certainly good for the company, and it doesn't matter if it's not. This is my evaluation and final decision from the perspective of artist cultivation. Finally, Li Shuman provided a summary. Since there is no problem from the artist's perspective, then this matter has been decided. Ji Ningmin nodded, with a slightly stiff smile on her face. Li Shuman's decision was exactly what he had in mind. Even if Li Shuman disagreed, he was prepared to actively persuade him beforehand. After all, the resources held by the child's family were necessary for the company to have contact with them. Even if the child's level was really average, as long as it was not too bad to watch, he would still keep him. He doesn't quite understand what it means to cultivate artists, and he's not as good as Li Shuman, who comes from an artist background. However, company operation is his profession, and he knows very well what he wants. Seeing that the two of them had reached an agreement, Ji Ningmin relaxed a bit and took out the document that was already prepared and placed aside. After reading it, she handed it to Li Shuman and said in a tone of discussion. We are about to enter February, and the teaser videos of the previous members have also been made public. Now that we are temporarily changing members, do we still need to continue with our previous debut plan? Do we need to make a new plan? Li Shuman took the document, looked it over, and after a moment of deliberation, said. The plan for February will not be changed for the time being. After the child enters the company, they will undergo some intensive training and then directly shoot the trailer video. After the trailer video is completed, they will reshoot the MV for the lead single. The venue used for the previous shooting has not been dismantled and can be reused. The master tape has not been sent to the manufacturer, so it will not have any impact. If everything goes smoothly, there is no need to change the previous debut plan. If it doesn't go smoothly, then the decision to postpone can only be made. Since you said that, I can rest assured. Ji Ningmin nodded and continued, what about the team situation? Do we need to make changes? If that child joins, he will definitely be assigned to the K team. He cannot directly replace Wusake from the M team, so he can only change a member from the K team to the M team. As a result, some of the previously filmed MVs cannot be used. After careful consideration, Li Shuman seemed to be evaluating the characteristics of the two team members of the upcoming group. A few minutes later, she made a decision. Let Luhan be the captain of the M team, find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, and then Bo Xian go to the M team, so that the strength of both sides can be balanced. As for the MV. Anyway, if we need to reshoot, we can only work hard for these children. Li Shuman pouted and easily solved the problem. He knows these children who are about to debut very well. For them, as long as they can make their debut, hard work is not a big deal. Anyway, which trainee did not come through this way is nothing more than going from very hard to very hard, and fundamentally there is no difference. However, as soon as this newly joined child entered the company, he immediately entered the debut group and became in a preparatory state. It can be said that he has no experience as a trainee, and I don't know if he can bear this hardship. I can only hope that his determination can support him. Li Shuman sends out good wishes. Ji Ningmin nodded and said sternly, that's the decision. The child is currently waiting in the conference room, and his next arrangements. Let me do it, Li Shuman agreed and picked up the internal phone. Let the conference room's director Qi Jingyuan and director Li Chenghuan come to my office. With a loud bang, Li Shuman hung up the phone and stood up to prepare to leave. He had just taken a few steps and seemed to remember something before turning around and saying, that's Wusake's side. Don't worry, let me communicate with him, Ji Ningmin said with a smile. It's better to be a bit tactful, after all, I've changed from a state of preparing to debut to a trainee again. I can imagine that my emotions won't be very stable, it's best. Li Shuman stopped halfway through and urged, forget it, you can handle it as you please. After speaking, Li Shuman left the president's office and walked towards her own office area. Ji Ningmin easily picked up the internal phone and said, "Let Wu Sake, who is preparing to debut at EXO, come to me." Chapter 3. Qi Jingyuan. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. Looking at the boy standing in front of her, Li Shuman nodded in appreciation. The boy in front of me is very tall, measuring about 182 centimeters in height. His figure is well maintained, indicating that he has undergone specialized exercise. He is wearing a fitted white hoodie suit, looking fresh and healthy. As soon as he stands there, he attracts the attention of his surroundings. Looking up is a face with a light smile. A face without makeup has good skin, which has nothing to do with the oily lunar surface skin commonly found in young people of this age. The appearance of his facial features is slightly softer and lacks strong attacking power, but when combined perfectly, it can make people vaguely feel the urge to get close. His appearance is exactly the type that Li Shuman admires. The most impressive thing about him is his eyes. In order to match his smile, he squinted his eyes, almost completely covering his pupils to form two crescent-shaped smiling eyes. Coupled with the sleeping silkworm below his eyes, it looked like he was enjoying a comic. Li Shuman likes facial expressions that are sharp and have a strong impact at first glance, but he also favors facial expressions that are not as aggressive but full of affinity, making people want to see more and more as they look. Especially with this squinting smile, Li Shuman has decided to use it as one of the charm points for boys in the future. Jingyuan, as a member of the company, you already understand the things to follow, Li Shuman said with a kind smile as he looked at the boy in front of him. Yes, Li Shuman PD Nim. Qi Jingyuan nodded. SM Entertainment Economics has quite a few regulations for its members, including training, accommodation, dressing style, and even hair styling, all of which require the company to make decisions, treating every artist as a perfect product to create. However, there are always exceptions. There are still some people in the company who don't pay much attention to these regulations, and senior artists who have been in the industry for a long time probably don't care much. Overall, newcomers are the most constrained. Since you have joined the company, just call me a teacher. Li Shuman smiled and waved his hand, saying in a friendly and elderly manner, of course, regulations are regulations, but the specific implementation still depends on the actual situation. I understand your situation very well, and some restrictions can still be lifted. Thank you very much, Teacher Li Shuman. Qi Jingyuan bowed in gratitude. Qi Jingyuan's brother has already told him about these things, and it is also his brother Qi Jingshu who has been communicating with SM Company since deciding to enter the entertainment industry. Li Shuman continued, your brother should have already told you about the specific situation. You joined the company just in time, and there happened to be a large men's team project. The candidates have also been screened, and some children's debut teaser videos have already been made public. In this situation, it is generally impossible to change personnel. But you are indeed very outstanding. Out of comprehensive consideration for the men's team planning and strong and sincere expectations for you, the company has decided to let you directly enter the preparatory debut group. Next, you need to make the most of your time to practice and meet the standards for appearing on stage as soon as possible to participate in the filming of the debut trailer video and song MV. With a caring expression on her face, Li Shuman admonished, life in the debut group can be very difficult. Are you ready? Don't worry, Teacher Li Shuman. I will definitely not disappoint the company's expectations. Qi Jingyuan bowed gently and maintained a smile. That would be great. You are truly someone I value. Let's continue to work hard with Star as our goal. Li Shuman nodded with satisfaction. Two people with vastly different looks but the same squinting smile make the atmosphere in the office very harmonious. Dong dong. A gentle knock on the door rang out, and with Li Shuman's permission, a man in his 30s walked in, bowing and greeting, Director Li Nim. Li Shuman nodded, pointing to Qi Jingyuan who was greeting him next to him, and said to the man, Cheng Huan, this is Qi Jingyuan. The company has made a decision to let him join EXO's preparatory debut group, with EXO.K as the team. Bo Xian from K Team transferred to M Team, Lu Han became the captain of M Team, and the original member Wu Seik returned to training. I know Director NIM, I will do it well. The man, also known as Li Chenhuan, immediately nodded in agreement. Although this notice was very sudden and disrupted many pre-planned plans, he knew that all he needed to do now was nod. He is the person promoted by Li Shuman, and he is very clear about Li Shuman's voice over EXO members. He turned his gaze to Jingyuan, who was bowing to the side, and looked up and down before nodding in affirmation. Although I don't know the specific reason for the parachute, this appearance already has considerable persuasiveness. Jingyuan, this is your group, EXO's agent and room manager, Li Chenhuan. In addition to overseeing the entire EXO group, he also manages the EXO.K team you belong to. After entering the company, you can follow his management. Li Shuman pointed to Li Chenhuan and introduced to Jingyuan. Director Li Nim, please take good care of me, said Jingyuan. Li Chenhuan nodded, knowing that the person who could directly debut and replace the confirmed members would not be easy. He did not show his serious face when facing other members in the past, but instead switched to a warm smile similar to Li Shuman on Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Well, you're the roommate, so I specifically called you over to let you know first. I also need to personally explain the other agents and group members. Xian Jun, are Yalan all watching the children, right? Li Shuman stood up and asked Li Chenhuan while walking. After receiving confirmation, he didn't delay and led the two of them directly to EXO's practice room. Just as Li Shuman and Jingyuan were having a friendly conversation, Wu Seik, who was called out of the practice room by his agent, was also walking towards the floor of the president's office. He was just training with his team members in the training room. Although his abilities were average, he was also selected for the debut group due to several unique advantages. He has now begun to prepare nervously for his debut, and his debut teaser video has also been filmed a few days ago, waiting to be released in a few days. Just as he was about to take a break after finishing a dance, the manager in charge walked in and called him out, only telling him, "The president called you over." Walking on the road, Wu Seik felt a bit puzzled and nervous. As a trainee before, he would not have had contact with the senior management of the company at the level of president unless there were special circumstances. Even if he entered the debut group to prepare for his debut, he had never spoken to the company president Jingyuan. On the other hand, Li Shuman had seen him a few times, but he didn't get along very well. Is it about those female trainees before? With a somewhat ominous premonition in his heart, Wu Seik began to recall whether he had made any mistakes recently, or whether some past events had been exposed. After walking for a while, he arrived at his destination and nervously knocked on the office door. The clear and sharp voice made his heart slightly cool. Come in. Chapter 4. You out. You are listening at novelfull.audio. President Nim. Wu Seik quickly bowed as he walked into the office. Jingyuan nodded slightly, put down the document in her hand, and glanced at Wu Seik, who was bowing and standing in front of her. For the person in front of her, Jingyuan doesn't have much impression. She hasn't met him twice, but it seems like she has heard that he wasn't very honest during his trainee years. But it doesn't matter anymore. Chris, you've been working as a trainee in the company for a few years now, haven't you? Jingyuan asked, not remembering how many years Wu Seik had practiced, just bringing up a topic. "NEI, President Nim, I have been practicing in the company for 5 years, Wu Seik replied, bowing down. Oh. Jingyuan nodded and said, now you're a member of the EXO debut group, right? Internally, President Nim, I was previously selected to join the EXO debut team and served as the captain of EXO.M. I will definitely not disappoint the company's expectations, The company has just made a decision. Before Wu Seik could finish speaking, Jingyuan interrupted him directly. He was too lazy to beat around a trainee who had not yet debuted, so he spoke out directly. After careful evaluation from all aspects, the company believes that there are still many shortcomings in your abilities and you have not met the standards for debut. In order to achieve the success of this large-scale men's team project, considering the development of the group, we have decided to let you withdraw from EXO's project and practice as a trainee in the company again. Ji Ning-min announced the death penalty of Woo-seik without emotional fluctuations. At the end, there seemed to be some sympathy, and finally a formal consolation was added. Your hard work has been seen by the company. When you return to your trainee status, you should also work hard and practice, maintain patience, and there will definitely be a chance to debut. This. Woo-seik was stunned for a moment, as if he had heard a difficult and incomprehensible local slang. It was only a few seconds later that he finally understood the meaning of Ji Ning-min's words. After understanding, the whole person became a bit dazed, with their mouths opening and closing again, but unable to utter a complete vocabulary. Their eyes stared blankly at Ji Ning-min, who had picked up the document to look up after speaking. Even the bangs that completely covered their eyelids couldn't conceal the dullness in his eyes. He was blinded. The life of a trainee is extremely arduous, with endless training, regular and brutal assessments, and harsh scolding from teachers, all of which are unbearable for ordinary people. He is not a very determined person himself, and he can persist until now because there is a big cake called Chu-dao hanging around him. A while ago, he finally finished filming his debut teaser video and music MV. Just as he was starving and holding his debut cake in his hand, he was about to feast on it when he was directly announced as out. Woo-seik waved his hands disorderly a few times, shook his head and couldn't believe it. In his confused mind, he quickly thought of excuses and reasons that could be saved. Suddenly, his eyes lit up, as if he had found a life-saving straw, and he quickly said. Society, President Nim, but my debut teaser video has already been filmed and according to the plan, it will be released soon. Moreover, the MV for the debut single has also been filmed. It's okay, in order to combine long-term planning, the company will consider reshooting. The previously built site has not been demolished yet, and it won't take a long time. Ji Ning-min scanned her face with spare light, as if she had found a glimmer of hope for Woo-seik. She turned her gaze back to the document in front of her and casually shattered the last wooden board in the drowning person's hand. But President Nim and EXO are divided into two teams, each consisting of 6 people. Without me, the number of people becomes asymmetrical, and many dance moves also need to be rehearsed. I am still the captain of Team M. These issues will be resolved by the company, and the company will make a new decision on the candidates to join the group and replace your position, but this is not something you need to consider. Ji Ning-min became a bit impatient. If it weren't for a slight pity for the person in front of him, he wouldn't have been talking to a trainee for so long with a friendly expression. Alright, there's nothing else you can leave, and you don't have to go to EXO's new training room. Go back to where a trainee should go. Re-select people. Who took over my position? Axie, it must be his fault. If it weren't for him, Woo-seik seemed to have not heard Ji Ning-min's request for his departure, or perhaps he had taken the initiative to ignore other words. His focus was entirely on the key point of replacing his position. The veins on both sides of his forehead were tense, and excitement, anger, hatred, and various negative emotions appeared on his face. Zhaoshuyuan.com. Just before he could start venting, he was interrupted by a loud bang. Bang! A water cup slammed fiercely on the floor in front of Woo-seik, and the piercing sound immediately woke him up from his chaotic mind caused by the huge impact. Woo-seik then realized who he was facing. Shiba, do you understand your identity? Ji Ning-min's eyes coldly scanned Woo-seik, with a clear expression of anger on her face. There was also some water splashed out on her sleeve when she threw the cup just now, indicating that she threw it hard. Wu Seik was awakened and realized that he was talking to the president of the company, a senior executive whom he wouldn't normally come into contact with. The anger that had just surged was shattered by a water glass, and the resistance that had just begun to take shape was immediately drowned in the reverence and fear that had been cultivated for a long time. Wu Seik seemed to want to apologize, but before he could say anything, he was interrupted by Jingyuan's flying hand. He could only grit his teeth and bow slightly, stumbling as he prepared to leave the office. As he walked out to close the door, he heard Jingyuan's final warning. "Don't forget what I said." After Wu Seik walked out, Jingyuan sat comfortably in a chair, his anger disappearing instantly. He looked at the water cup on the ground and the spilled water, and with a flick of his mouth, it seemed a pity. He casually picked up an internal phone and told his secretary to tidy up the office, then continued to pick up the documents and read them. It seems like nothing happened just now. During a completely unequal communication between Wu Seik and Jingyuan, Jingyuan also followed Li Shiman and Li Qinghuan to EXO's practice room. Chapter 5. Joining. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. One important thing for the trainees is their eyes. When they saw Li Shiman and Li Qinghuan pushing the door in, they looked like they had something to announce. Ly, who was dancing near the door, immediately stopped and bowed a few times before quickly turning off the phone playing the song. Upon hearing the commotion, the other members practicing the dance and the two agents standing in the corner chatting also stopped to bow to Li Shiman and Li Qinghuan, and then calmly looked at Jingyuan behind them. Jingyuan also bowed back, while Li Shiman nodded lightly and looked at a row of 11 members of the EXO debut group standing in front of him. With a smile on his face, he praised, "Everyone is working very hard. Great, let's continue to work hard to become an excellent artist." After a formulaic compliment, Li Shiman went straight to the point and pointed to Jingyuan to announce to everyone, "The company has made a new decision to include the newly joined Jingyuan in the planning of the large boy group EXO." When Li Shiman spoke of himself, Jingyuan bowed to the crowd. The teams before the combination will be adjusted. Jingyuan will join the EXO.K team, Bo Xian will transfer from the EXO.K team to the EXO.M team, and the captain of the M team will be changed to Luhan. The original member Chris withdrew from the project and will continue to wait for opportunities in the company as a trainee. The debut music video in which Chris participated was abandoned and will be refilmed as a new member and group. The company will immediately make a filming plan, and the previously determined debut plan and trailer video release time will not be changed temporarily. You need to continue to work hard. Whenever Li Shiman mentioned a person's name, his gaze would turn to that person, while Luhan and Bo Xian, who were called and watched, both bowed nervously and nodded, indicating that they understood. Quickly, Li Shiman explained the situation clearly. Even though this sudden, airborne incident surprised and even made everyone a bit panicked, they immediately bowed after Li Shiman finished speaking, indicating no problem, no questioning or resistance. Great, Suho will familiarize the team members and new members with each other, and then continue training. The new shooting plan will be issued soon, and the dormitory adjustment will be arranged by the agent. After speaking, Li Shiman gently patted the shoulder of Jingyuan, who was standing next to him without saying a word, and gestured for the three agents next to him to go out with him. Li Shiman seemed to sense the panic in the hearts of the members, and finally comfortingly added, "This is the last change before debut." Then she walked out. And the three agents each gestured to the members with their eyes and followed closely behind Li Shiman as they walked out. The door closed, and Li Shiman walked a little further with the three of them into a small conference room. He restrained his smile, but didn't take it all back. He warned the three agents, because of the addition of new members, you must keep the team stable. I don't want to see any trouble. Inside. The three agents immediately guaranteed. Jingyuan's dance background is very good. Cheng Huan, please arrange a dance teacher for Jingyuan to do a surprise practice, just Shen Ziyuan. I will talk to him about it. And teach him the dance movements of several songs in the album as soon as possible, and make sure he meets the standards for stage performance as soon as possible. Report the progress to me every day so that the company can make plans. Inside. Li Shuman spoke to Li Jingyuan, and after receiving a response, she looked at the third agent Zhao Yalan and said, as agreed, Jingyuan will go home today to pack his luggage and officially move into the dormitory tomorrow. After you go back, you should arrange the dormitory and life matters. Nei. Zhao Yalan nodded and agreed. Great, that's it. I know this decision was very sudden, but the company made it through comprehensive consideration. I believe that with your experience, you can definitely handle this sudden situation. Let's work together and not let EXO's debut plan be affected. After Li Shuman finished explaining, she nodded and left first. But he hadn't taken 2 steps yet, as if he had remembered something and then turned back. He solemnly reminded the 3 agents, the situation of the newly joined Qi Jingyuan is somewhat special, so you need to be gentle and choose the management methods. He is not a tricky child, and I believe you can do it well. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Please rest assured, Director. After hearing these words, a clear expression flashed in the eyes of the 3 agents and they immediately said. Li Shuman finally felt at ease and left in a daze. The 3 agents exchanged glances, and the main agent, Li Sung-hyun, shrugged his shoulders. Related households, who doesn't know? Without any experience as a trainee, the first day he joined the company was when he was ready to debut. He could even have the company modify the confirmed and implemented debut plan for him, and directly replace a member who had already finished filming the debut video and MV. Such a newcomer, even if Li Shuman didn't mention it, how could these agents not see it? However, it seems that this time the related parties are not ordinary. The 3 agents walked back, each feeling their own emotions. With the sound of the door closing, only Qi Jingyuan and 11 EXO members remained in the practice room. The atmosphere suddenly became solemn, and the entire practice room was filled with a tense atmosphere, quiet enough to hear only slight gasping sounds. This is the fatigue left by dancing during the practice just now. During the practice, there was 1 person standing on one side and 11 people standing side by side, looking at each other in a tense and awkward atmosphere. The members of EXO have different eyes, most of which are scrutinizing and skeptical, and there are also glaring and unpleasant looks. However, Qi Jingyuan, who was stared at by everyone with scrutinizing eyes, seemed to have no sense of anything amiss. He squinted his smiling eyes, fearlessly scrutinizing every member in front of him, his gaze sweeping over a person's face, also scrutinizing them. Although he had a smile on his face, there was no emotion in his eyes. Chapter 6. A tense atmosphere. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Although he had a smile on his face, there was no emotion in his eyes. The doubts and displeasure that had just been masked by Li Shuman's presence gradually spread, and Qi Jingyuan could clearly feel that many of the gazes at him did not contain kindness. Qi Jingyuan understands that his sudden arrival has brought a lot of trouble to these people, at least because his joining to remake the MV is a reason that makes everyone unhappy. Besides, what makes people even more jealous is his airborne attribute. This is a combination that has been confirmed to debut, with a confirmed debut date. The team and various preliminary preparations have been completed, and even the teaser video and MV have been completed. As soon as the time is up, they can directly step onto the stage. They each worked hard for a long time to make their debut, prepared countless times, and after multiple cruel and fierce competitions, finally squeezed into the debut group, and finally waited for the day to bloom and bear fruit. Several of them worked hard for many years to finally get such an opportunity, but now a new employee from a company has parachuted into their group and can enjoy the fruits that are about to bloom together. But it cannot resist the company's decision, and the extreme imbalance in the heart is difficult to suppress. Fortunately, not everyone is like this, at least some people can control their emotions. After a few seconds of awkward and unfriendly eye contact, Jin Junmi Suho clapped his hands, breaking the suffocating atmosphere, and took the initiative to come to Jingyuan. A smile appeared on his face and he said, "Ah Nei, I'm glad to have a new member join. I believe the company's decision won't be wrong. I'm Jin Junmi Suho, the captain of EXO and EXO.K, born in 1991. Jingyuan quickly scanned Jin Junmian, who looked quite delicate. Even with a lot of sweat on his forehead, he couldn't hide a sense of gentleness on his body. It seemed that he was born into a cultural family and gave a good first impression. Jingyuan bowed gently and said, "Ah Nei, I am very happy to join EXO. I am Jingyuan, born in 1994. Jingyuan didn't introduce too much, and this kind of occasion and atmosphere is completely unsuitable. Just know each other's age and size." Upon hearing that Jingyuan was younger than himself, Jin Junmian looked much more relaxed. He patted Jingyuan's shoulder and gestured to the other members with his eyes. "Ah Nei, I am Dushio Dio, born in 1993. The second one introduces Dushio, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, and the lying silkworms under her eyes are very prominent." He didn't look unhappy and looked at Jingyuan with a smile, bowing to each other before retreating to the side. "Annyeonghaseyo, I am Wu Shushuan, born in 1994, in April. Wu Shushuan is the third." His face looked more delicate than the previous two, white and tender. After scanning him, Jingyuan spoke sincerely to his peers, "I'm from May. Oh, Jingyuan is even smaller than Shushuan. It seems that we have changed people in our busy schedule." Jin Junmian interjected with a lively smile, indicating that his psychological regulation ability is very good. He has accepted Jingyuan's existence and started actively regulating the relationship between everyone. Ha! Ha! A few awkward and somewhat forced voices echoed, making the atmosphere slightly better. After all, it's better to have a comedian than to have no one speak up. After hearing about Jingyuan's age, everyone also relaxed a lot. This is a place that places great emphasis on the relationship between generations, and facing a nominal junior always makes people feel that they will have some advantages. "Ah Nei, I'm Ly, born in 1991. Annyeonghaseyo, I am Luhan, born in 1990. Annyeonghaseyo." The rest of the group began to introduce themselves, and whenever someone spoke, Jingyuan and the introducer would bow gently to each other. His memory is very good, and everyone's name and appearance have been compared in his heart. I quickly introduced myself, but when I reached the last person, there was suddenly no sound. The atmosphere became tense again. Jingyuan looked at the last member who had not yet been introduced, and saw him standing at the very side, resting half against the wall, looking at the empty space next to him with disdainful expressions on his face. He even touched his cochlea with his hand and gently blew in front of his mouth, paying no attention to the other people's diverted gaze. Jin Junmian gestured with his eyes several times but did not receive a response, so he had no choice but to take the initiative and say, "Kanlai, it's your turn." Being called out by the captain and seniors, Park Kanlai couldn't take it for granted. He approached Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com and forced himself to stand straight, bowing lightly towards the nearby air. In an impatient tone, he said, "Nei, I am Park Kanlai, born in 1992. After speaking, he turned around as if he had completed the task. This demeanor caused several members around to exchange eye contact with each other, and Luhan pouted at Ly without saying a word. Jingyuan clearly saw a flash of embarrassment and anger in Jin Junmian's eyes standing beside him. However, he seemed unaffected and still bowed to Park Kanlai as before, except that the smile at the corner of his mouth became noticeably darker and his eyes narrowed a bit tighter. Dushio and Wu Shushuan, who were relatively close to Jingyuan's station, seemed to notice the change in his expression. They looked at Jingyuan at the same time, then at Park Kanlai, and finally exchanged glances. After their eyes met, they immediately flashed to other places. Silence. It is the best annotation. However, regardless of the atmosphere, after introducing oneself and completing the task assigned by Li Shuman, Jingyuan reluctantly glanced at Park Can-lai and breathed a sigh of relief before clapping his hands and preparing to say the next thing. Alright, the new members of the group have arrived and are still busy. It's something to be happy about. We. Bang. Bang. The sudden and loud voice mercilessly interrupted Jin Junmian's words, and the closed door was kicked open with a fierce thud, hitting the wall with a crisp sound before bouncing back. Then he was kicked open and bounced against the wall, making a loud noise again. The door of the practice room seemed to shake and tremble as if scared by the kick, afraid to bounce back and hide on one side. And with the sound came a hysterical face. Chapter 7. Ah Nei. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. After Wu Seik walked out of the president's office, he walked along the corridor in a daze like a zombie. His mind was in a chaotic state, with various thoughts intertwined in a tangled and chaotic manner. The huge impact made his brain feel like it had been hit 10 times by a 10T hammer from the forehead, and various images appeared uncontrollably in his mind. The first second was when he was sweating while practicing, the next second became the cold expression of Jin Ingmin just now, and then suddenly became a scene of himself playing with a female trainee. Next was the scene he once fantasized about, receiving cheers and admiration from the audience when he successfully debuted and became a top star. This floor belongs to a high-rise building, and few people usually walk around. At this time, there is no sound in the corridor, only his own light and soft footsteps, some of which are hard to hear, combined with various images in his mind, make Wu Seik feel like he is in another world. I don't know how long it took for Wu Seik to finally wake up. He looked around in confusion and found that he had walked to the staircase on the second floor. The company's trainee practice rooms are usually on the first floor or basement, and he used to practice in the basement practice room. However, after being selected for the EXO debut group, he had already bid farewell to that dark, damp, and sweaty place in his memory. An EXO's practice room is on the second floor, where he practiced before going to the president's office. He had never walked out before, and the place he had just walked through a few minutes ago had become so unfamiliar, as if he had been here for the first time. According to Jin Ingmin's instructions, he has now withdrawn from the EXO group and is no longer an artist about to debut. He has become a trainee again, and Jin Ingmin specifically mentioned that he should not disturb other people's practice in the EXO training room anymore, but should return directly to the place where he should go. The president's indifferent voice echoed in his ears. He instinctively wanted to follow orders and walk back to the trainee practice room, but he couldn't take the first step down the stairs. In order to debut, he can work hard and practice for several years. In order to make his debut, he can tolerate the merciless scolding and even physical punishment from company teachers and roommates. In order to make his debut, he can immediately let go of his intimate relationship with several female trainees and become a good child for several months. He feels like he has done enough already. But everything was gone, and the beautiful future that was already close in front of us instantly turned into pitch black. The more Wu Seik thinks, the more uncomfortable he feels, the less he feels, and the more he thinks, the more angry he becomes. Years of practice have made his sunk costs unbearable. Wu Seik looked around, and the walls of the hallway were covered with various photos of SM's predecessors who had already debuted. Although each photo had a different angle on the front face, he only felt that all the people in the photos were looking at him, and everyone's eyes were full of ridicule and ridicule. He felt that he had been surrounded by the sarcastic gaze. It is generally not possible for companies to have members who have already finished filming their music videos withdraw from the group at this time. Someone must have been causing trouble, it must be. It's the person who replaces me. If it weren't for him, how could I have fallen to this point? It's him, it's because of him. It's because of him. The more Wu Seik thought about it, the more unbearable it became. He shifted all his anger and hatred onto the person who was about to replace him. As soon as he thought about being replaced, an indescribable sadness and anger filled his mind, and it was impossible to suppress it. Wu Saik, whose mind was congested, had now lost his ability to think. It was also possible that he had not even thought about thinking, only wanted to vent. At this point, he couldn't think much anymore and walked straight towards EXO's practice room. With a loud noise, all members in the practice room were startled and quickly looked towards the door. What caught the eye was Wu Saik, who was completely unrecognizable due to his anger. At this moment, his anger and blood surged up, and his entire face turned red due to congestion. The long bangs covered one side of his forehead, while the blue veins on the other side of his forehead were exposed and tense, with a strong hatred in his eyes, scanning the 12 people in the practice room. Quickly, he set his goal as a newcomer he had never seen before. The person who wants to replace him, a person who makes him sick with a smile. He wants to teach this person a lesson. Wu Saik quickly walked towards the direction of Jingyuan, exerting great force with each step, as if to stomp on the entire floor of the training room with his own anger. It's because of this person. Axiba. He kept repeating these two sentences back and forth in his mouth. The whole person's behavioral logic has completely disrupted, and at this moment, he looks like a real zombie, rushing towards his goal, unconsciously shouting, "Eat meat," in his mouth. Chris has returned, and we already know the company's decision. Please calm down. Captain Jingyuan saw Wu Saik's abnormality. He didn't mean to dodge, but took the initiative to stop Wu Saik and ease his feelings. In fact, he also sympathized with Wu Saik in his heart. However, before Jingyuan could finish speaking, he was forcefully pushed aside by Wu Saik with great strength, and he stumbled several steps before reluctantly supporting the wall and standing firm. At this moment, Wu Saik had already walked up to Jingyuan. When Wu Saik entered the door, Jingyuan had already realized the background of this person, because he knew he would replace someone in the team before, and Jingyuan's words also confirmed this. He turned around and kept a smile, looking towards Wu Saik as he approached closer and closer. Meanwhile, Du Shuxiu and Wu Shishuan, who were standing nearby, were shocked to see Jingyuan almost being pushed down. After a moment of reflection, they quickly came up and stopped Wu Saik. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Everyone can tell that Wu Saik's emotions are abnormal, and it is obvious that he is not here to speak well. However, when Wu Saik walked up to Jingyuan, he had already started to step forward and had no intention of speaking. He waved his right hand and used all his strength, accompanied by extreme anger, to strike a straight punch, trying to shatter the annoying smiling face in front of him. He can't consider the consequences anymore, he just wants to teach this person a lesson. And other EXO members around exclaimed in surprise, some wanted to step forward to stop, some dodged to the side, and some were looking at the excitement with a smirk on their faces. For a moment, the time in the practice room seemed to have come to a standstill, and everyone's expressions and movements merged into a vivid oil painting. The next second, Jingyuan, who had been silent for a while, swiftly flashed to the right and dodged Wu Saik's full-force straight punch. Then, taking advantage of Wu Saik's unstable center of gravity, Jingyuan immediately grabbed his opponent's arm with both hands, pushed his shoulder forward, and patted his right foot forward. He held on to Wu Saik's leg and used the opponent's strength to directly lift him up, then fiercely smashed him onto the ground behind him, making a terrifying muffled sound. Bang! The EXO members standing next to each other felt pain just by looking at them, and their faces empathized with the pain they had experienced. A beautiful over-shoulder fall. After smashing Wu Saik to the ground, Jingyuan remained expressionless and gently swept the dust off his collar with his hand. Despite maintaining a dazzling smile, he bent down and looked at Wu Saik, who had already been thrown out of consciousness. He exchanged a crescent-shaped smile with the bewildered gaze of the other person for a while, then chuckled lightly and patted Wu Saik's right face with his right hand, saying, Ah Nei. Sorry. Chapter 8. Turning Small Matters into Nothing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ah Nei. After finishing speaking with a smile, Jingyuan stood up again, ignoring Wu Seik, who was slightly convulsing from the fall, or the shocked eyes of his teammates around him. He moved aside as if this had nothing to do with him. Members in the practice room, take a look at me, take a look at you, as if you are still immersed in the sudden occurrence of things, without even a person to help Wu Seik. Before they noticed, there were already 3 onlookers standing around EXO's practice room, all of whom heard the loud commotion of Wu Seik kicking the door just now, wanting to see what was happening. Because the practice room of the trainees is not on this floor, these onlookers are all experienced artists who have already debuted. Jingyuan has a good understanding of the company's popular artists, and upon a glance, he found that it is Super's Captain Light and member Prodigy, as well as Sunny from her teenage years standing a little further away. At this moment, Light and the Prodigy looked at the situation in the practice room in surprise. They didn't know the boy in front of them who had made a beautiful over-shoulder throw, but felt that his smile and behavior were full of contrast. And Sunny didn't have too many expressions, but Jingyuan seemed to see appreciation in her eyes. He had some doubts that he had misread. After discovering a senior artist watching, Jingyuan immediately bowed and saluted after taking a glance. Sunny looked at Jingyuan with meaningful big eyes, bowed lightly and nodded in return, while Light and the Prodigy beside him also reacted and made the same action. Senior Ani has sigh. Other members of EXO also reacted and bowed to the 3 seniors. At this moment, the sound of messy and anxious footsteps came, and 3 agents ran into the practice room. Li Chenghuan, the leader, glanced at the situation at the scene and said seriously, "Axie, what's going on? Did someone fight?" In SM, trainees often encounter conflicts, but most of them are isolated or verbal bullying. Fighting is not a small matter, especially if someone is really injured, the company usually takes strict punishment. Recently, Lei was sent back to China by the company because he injured someone in a fight. Captain Jean Junmian quickly went up and described in brief words what had just happened. Upon hearing that Wu Seik had taken the initiative to attack, while Jingyuan had only counterattacked, the agent seemed to have relaxed a lot. Li Chenghuan glanced at Wu Seik lying on the ground and confirmed that he was not in a big deal. He then called someone to prepare to take Wu Seik to the hospital. After finishing the phone call, he walked around and looked at everyone's expressions, without any intention of blaming Jingyuan. And the 3 seniors who were watching on the side also left after saying hello to the EXO agent. Jingyuan noticed that Sunny had turned around and glanced at him before leaving. Soon, an assistant arrived at the practice room and carried Wu Seik, who had slowed down a bit, out to take him to the hospital for a check-up to avoid any accidents. At this point, there were only 12 members of EXO and 3 main agents left in the practice room. EXO-DEM team's agent Lin Xianjun looked sternly at the members and began to hold them accountable. Just now, the members were going to have a fight, were you all watching from the side? Why didn't you stop it? Thanks to not having serious consequences this time, this kind of thing is related to every member. If it affects the group's debut plan, who can be held responsible? Lin Xianjun reprimanded the EXO members without anyone refuting them. Anyway, it wasn't a big deal, and they got used to it. They just lowered their heads and listened. Jingyuan stood by the side of the team, listening attentively together. He had originally looked up to observe Lin Xuanjuan's expression, but immediately imitated the movements of his teammates around him, lowering his head silently. To be honest, he thinks it's quite fresh. After training for a while, Lin Xianjun also felt that there was no need and began to assign tasks. Do you all remember what Director Li Shuman said before? Bo Xian, in the future, you will rehearse with Team M, and the dormitory will also be transferred. Your dance movements, walking, and singing part will directly replace Chris. Hurry up and rehearse, and the MV will be refilmed soon. I understand, Brother Xianjun. Bien Boxian pursed his mouth and nodded lightly, feeling very unhappy in his heart. MV, dance, These things that have already been rehearsed need to be rehearsed for now. While replacing Wu Seik, he also inherited his singing section, and his exposure opportunities were immediately greatly reduced. Originally, he was one of the main members of the K team, ranking at the forefront in terms of dance positioning, song segments, and even MV appearance shots, but now he's gone all of a sudden. However, he dared not say anything to refuse and could only silently accept it. Luhan, after Chris exits, you will be the captain of the EXO-DM team. If the two teams move separately after debuting, you need to shoulder the responsibility of captain and do what you should do. NEI. Luhan nodded. This matter had little impact on him. With the title of captain, the reputation would be more prominent, and sometimes the degree of freedom would also be higher. After handling the matter with Team M, Lin Xianjun did not speak again. Instead, he turned his gaze to the main agent Li Chenhuan on the side and looked for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Li Chenhuan also spoke out in a timely manner. Team K is still rehearsing as before, with no need to change the singing section and movements. Jingyuan can directly replace Bo Xian's singing section and movements. Next, Li Chenhuan looked at Qi Jingyuan and said, Jingyuan doesn't need to practice with the team for now. I have already contacted the dance teacher and he will first check on your progress. Starting from tomorrow when you move into the dormitory, we will start providing you with surprise training to help you quickly familiarize yourself with the team's dance and meet the requirements for stage performance. You need to work completely hard, and I will pay attention to your situation every day and report to Director Li. Also, Yalan will arrange the dormitory matters. You can go home today and tidy up your bao, and move directly to the dormitory tomorrow. Inside, Qi Jingyuan replied. Suho, pay attention to the team's emotions these days and don't let the previous events happen again. Okay, Brother Chenhuan, I will work hard, Jin Junmian quickly said. Li Chenhuan nodded in satisfaction, clapped his hands, and finally concluded, all right, kids, you're about to debut. Don't slack off in the final period of time, always demand yourself as an artist of SM Company, and you will definitely succeed. Kong sang mi de. The members all agreed. All right, let's continue practicing. Jingyuan, follow me and I'll take you to the teacher's place. After saying that, Li Chenhuan gestured for Qi Jingyuan to follow and then walked out of the practice room. The other two agents also left here. Creak. The door of the practice room seems to have been severely damaged in the incident just now, and there was a piercing sound when it closed. Axie, there's actually such a thing happening. As the agent's footsteps gradually faded away, the sound in the practice room became disharmonious. Chapter 9. Going Home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Axie, there's actually such a thing happening. Park Kanlai, who has always shown his dissatisfaction openly, immediately spoke out to vent his frustration after his agent left. The atmosphere in the practice room was very silent, with each person sitting on the ground without any response. Everyone had their own ideas, and Captain Jin Junmian did not speak. It was evident that he also had a strong aversion to airborne behavior. I used to only hear about being able to parachute into and out of the training group and practice for a period of time before debuting. But now I can even enter the company and debut directly, without even being a trainee for a day. Oh, really? Seeing no response from anyone, Park Kanlai continued, even though Chris has already finished filming the trailer video and is about to be released, he was actually taken away at this time. A few people from your country dare not say a word. Even we need to reshoot the MV together. What is the company thinking? Do we need to change 2 more people in 2 days? Even after debuting, can we change personnel at any time? Park Kanlai and Wu Seik had a good relationship before, and their hobbies were similar, making them a rare combination for foreigners and locals to play together. Upon hearing his words, Luhan seemed a bit dissatisfied and his face changed, wanting to argue something. However, Ly sitting next to him quietly tugged at him, dispelling his thoughts. And Tao, who was sitting with them, was looking at his palm, seeming to have grasped some truth from it. After feeling Luhan's movements, he turned his head to look at the two compatriots next to him. After realizing nothing was happening, he continued to look at his hand. Du Juanxiu sat next to Jin Junmian, staring intently at the soles of her shoes. Wu Shixuan stared blankly ahead, unsure whether he was in a daze or meditating. And the other members also had their own expressions, without anyone agreeing. Canlai, teacher Li Shuman has already said that there will be no more personnel changes, and changing someone is already chaotic enough. It can't be like this anymore. Jin Junmian, who had been silent for a while, finally spoke up. He was unhappy with Qi Jingyuan's parachute and also had dissatisfaction with Park Canlai. The incident of ignoring him just now has not passed, and it has been him who has been constantly venting his frustrations. Even though the members are not feeling well, do you insist on jumping out and disrupting the atmosphere? Even if we don't change people, how can we talk about this? That kid is called Qi Jingyuan, and by the way, he's called Qi Jingyuan. Look at how he treats his seniors. Chris is his senior trainee, and he's still his brother. He just threw him into the hospital like this, and the company didn't even scold him. This relationship holder is so arrogant when he comes in. Take a look at his fake smile. He's still busy, and I guess he didn't take our brothers seriously. The company even openly favors him, and when we fight, the agent doesn't say a word. I reckon he'll be riding on us in a few days, and... Alright, stop talking. Jin Junmian suddenly had a fit and interrupted Park Canlai's sour words. He looked at him impatiently and said, "So what can you do? Are you going to fight him? Are you going to be thrown into the hospital like Chris? Or are you going to protest with teacher Li Shuman, telling him that you are very dissatisfied with the company's decision and asking the company to retract it, otherwise you will rebel and withdraw from the group?" Pushi. A few members couldn't help but burst out laughing, but because the atmosphere was not right, they immediately suppressed it and thought nothing had happened. Alright, there will always be related parties, and this kind of thing happens to senior combinations as well. Now that things are like this, the company's decision cannot be changed, and we can only accept it. And... Jin Junmian paused for a moment before continuing, and although changing people has made us work harder, it's not without benefits. At least Chris's strength doesn't meet the standards for debut in my heart. You should also know what kind of person he is. There's nothing bad about him leaving the group. It's probably because it's inconvenient for Canlai to go downstairs with no one to find female trainees in the future. Park Canlai, who was named, was very dissatisfied. He looked at Jin Junmian as if he wanted to refute something, but due to the dual identity of the opposing team leader and the senior trainee, he could only hate and shut his mouth in the end. Based on my observation, Jingyuan may be a bit arrogant, but he is not someone who cannot communicate with others. At least as a younger generation, he has done everything he should have with courtesy, and there is nothing to blame. As for matters related to his family, there is nothing to say about family reasons. Everyone is practicing to make their debut, and we have finally reached this point. We are about to succeed on zhaoshuyuan.com. Don't let those things affect us anymore, and make the final effort. Let's start training, your M team is quite busy. Jin Junmian suppressed Park Canlai's venting behavior and waved his hand, saying that the matter should be turned over. Everyone also stood up one after another, and soon the sound of music came from the practice room. Qi Jingyuan took a long breath, as if trying to dispel his exhaustion. He opened the rear door and sat down in the car. This is the car that came to pick him up and drive his second brother's assistant Park Jae-hyun. He had already greeted him before getting on the car, and at this moment, he didn't want to say a word more. A person who has been working as an assistant next to his second brother for several years must be very observant. Park Jae-hyun saw that Qi Jingyuan was tired and didn't have much to say, so he just drove the car. The sky was already a bit dark, and the business signs on both sides of the road reflected on Jingyuan's face. The crowd and street view in the car window quickly receded, making it difficult to see clearly. Cars stop and go on the road, and everywhere is the sound of honking that comes to mind due to traffic congestion. The traffic in Seoul is still so bad, and citizens have been shouting for improvement, but it hasn't changed to anything. It took a long time to cross the Hanan Bridge, and then made another circle up the Itaewon station. Not long after, the car drove into a group of villas located in Longshan district and into a white villa. The villa covers a considerable area, but it doesn't look as large as several surrounding villas, so it doesn't need to be particularly eye-catching. The exterior decoration is in a standard American style and looks quite luxurious, maintaining a consistent level with the surrounding villa group. Jingyuan got off the car, nodded at Park Jae-hyun driving, and then walked into the house. Chapter 10. Family Members. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. OMO, Wooly Jingyuan has returned. Xianju, hurry up and prepare dinner. Jingyuan, it must have been very hard today. Seeing Jingyuan enter the room, a voice immediately came over. The speaker was a woman of about 30 years old, wearing a black suit jacket lined with a white shirt. Every piece of clothing was clearly not an ordinary brand, dressed in standard elite female attire. Before Jingyuan came in, she sat there looking at a certain document, exuding a strong aura. And the woman's short sentence was composed in a completely different tone, with everything she said to Jingyuan in a friendly and indulgent tone, while the maid named Xianju immediately returned to a serious and urging tone, and finally transformed into a caring tone towards Jingyuan. This is Jingyuan's elder sister, Xianjing. The older sister is exactly 30 years old this year. According to the Peninsula algorithm, she should be 31 years older than Jingyuan, 12 years older. The two siblings are not in the same age group, and the older sister has been working with her father for a long time. Now, she has taken over a considerable part of the business and manages many shares in the company. Sister Xianjing has been strict with herself since she was young due to the expectations of her parents. Carrying the expectations of her parents, she has also lived up to expectations and become an elite among the female elites in the peninsula. And her personality has always been very serious, meticulous in everything she does, both in life and work. Even when scolding her second brother, she scolds her every time and rarely shows any affection. However, she dotes on her younger brother, who is 12 years younger than herself. Every time she faces her younger brother, Xianjing seems to have changed a person. In recent years, Xianjing's work has gradually become much busier, and she has not spent as much time with her family. Today, it is obvious that she is specifically waiting for Jingyuan at home. Angry, aren't you busy with work today? From the moment Jingyuan stepped into his home, the smile he had always maintained at the company had already disappeared, and the smiling eyes he had been squinting had also opened. His eyes were delicate, not big or small, and his expression at this moment was far from as rich as outside. I originally had a meeting this afternoon, but I have already postponed it to tomorrow. You will be moving to the company dormitory tomorrow. Of course, I will come back tonight to have dinner with my younger brother. As expected, Xianjing said, after dinner with you, I'm going back to the company. I've already packed your salute for you. Just have Park Jae-hyun help you pick it up tomorrow. As she spoke, Xianjing walked up to Jingyuan and helped him take off his sports hoodie. She patted his head and said, "Go take a shower and come out to eat together." After speaking, Xianjing shouted in the direction of the second floor, "Jingshu, Jingyuan is back, come down and prepare to eat." His tone was cold, far from the enthusiasm he had when talking to Jingyuan. Allah soa, with a deliberately elongated voice, a figure stumbled down from the second floor, and it was Jingshu, the second brother of Jingyuan. Our big star has returned. The second brother walked down loosely and winked at Jingyuan for a while. Jingyuan shook his head without saying a word and turned around to walk towards the bathroom. He and his older sister have a big age difference, and the older sister dotes on him, so there is a feeling of being a mother like older sister. However, the second brother is only 2 years younger than the older sister and is not in the same age group as him, but he particularly likes to joke with him. Since Jingyuan had a memory when he was young, the second brother has played a villainous role that he dislikes and likes to tease him. The second brother didn't pay much attention to Jingyuan's reaction. Instead, he smiled and watched his back leave his sight, then pouted at the older sister. Xianjing chuckled lightly, shook her head helplessly, and got up to check the preparation of the meal. After a while, Jingyuan, who had taken a shower and was completely transparent, sat at the dinner table feeling exhausted and disappeared. After greeting him, he immediately began to wolf down and practiced with the dance teacher Shen Ziyuan prepared by the company for him all afternoon. Even though he had a good foundation and often exercised, he felt very tired. My second brother, Jingshu, didn't know if he was not hungry at all. His attention wasn't focused on the food at all. Instead, he stared at Jingyuan's chopsticks. Whenever Jingyuan wanted to pick something, he would reach out and disrupt it, regardless of whether it was successful or not. He had a sense of participation in every bite of Jingyuan's food. Jingyuan, who was extremely hungry, was too lazy to argue with this second brother. He only accelerated his movements of reaching out to pick up the vegetables, trying to prevent the other party from succeeding. And the older sister casually took a few bites and went to the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. She put down her chopsticks, stood up, put on her clothes, and said, "All right, I'm going to the company. Wooly Jingyuan, take your time eating. Everything else is already prepared. Let your second brother tell you the rest. Goodbye if you're angry." Jingyuan quickly put down his chopsticks, stood up and said goodbye to his sister, but the older sister sat down again on her shoulder, smiled, and waved before walking out. After a while, the meal time ended and the two brothers sat together on the sofa, watching TV. There is SBS's monthly drama series, Chu Han Chronicles, on TV, which, out of some unknown mindset, connects the story of the ancient history of the Xia dynasty and the struggle between Chu and Han with the white-collar life on the peninsula. This cross-dimensional imagination leaves Jingyuan unsure of what to say. However, it is said that the ratings of this drama are still good, so it can only be said that it has its own advantages. After looking absent-mindedly for a while, the voice of the second brother came to my ears. "How are you feeling today?" Although the voice was the same, the tone was much more serious than before, and it was no longer a joke. "It's okay, it's similar to what I imagined." Jingyuan collapsed on the sofa with an extremely lazy expression. "You don't seem to be in a decent condition. Don't cry and say you're too tired to take it anymore and run home in a few days," Jingshu sneered as he looked at Jingyuan's expression. And Jingyuan responded with a self-understanding look in his brother's eyes, without saying anything. He believes that with their brother's tacit understanding, his brother can definitely get it in an instant. Jingshu pursed his lips and selectively ignored his younger brother's contempt for him. After glancing at the TV screen, he continued, "Your suspension procedures have been completed for you. Now you finally don't have to go to class.